geoengineering, Biz, Faculty of Creative Design and Digital Business. Vocation, Faculty of Vocational. And Interdisciplinary School of Management and Technology. Recognized as one of the top best-ranked institutes doesn't mean the finish line for ITS. To gain greater international recognition, ITS launched International Undergraduate Program. Students can get wider international exposure through 20 study programs they can apply. The chances are also open for professors from all over the world to teach and conduct research at ITS. These opportunities have made international joint research and other international activities successfully performed. Like IUP, students and lecturers from other programs have also contributed to the ITS achievements. Appreciations earned exemplify Institute's excellent performance. But technology and academic excellence is not the only goal of the Institute. Students are guided to apply their knowledge for the welfare of society. Because to note a new life-changing history, technology must advance humanity. ITS, Institute Technology, 10 November.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May God always bestow prosperity and health to all of us. Welcome to the guest lecture series on SDGs. Today, on Thursday, March 12, 2022. I am Rainy from ITS Global Engagement and will be your Master of Ceremony and as well as a moderator for today. Today, our sessions will be with the special speakers. The first, I'd like to say hi first to Mr. Marge Joseph Sardo, or as known as Mr. MG, for Philippines Normal University. Hello, Mr. MG, how are you? Hello, Mr. MG,
Hello.
can you hear my voice?
Yes. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon, Mr. MJ. It is an honor for us to have you in GLS on SDG. Okay, and the second, I'd like to say hello to Prof. Victoria G Heler from West Visayas State University. Good afternoon, Prof. Heller.
Good afternoon. Salamat sore.
Selamat sore, Prof. Heller. Thank you, Miss
Did I
Heller.
pronounce it correctly?
Pardon me?
Did I say it correctly? Salamat sore.
Yeah, that's great. Selamat sore. That's perfect. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ms. Heller, for your valuable time with us for today. And the participant, before we start our agenda, here's some technical rules for all participants. First, please adjust your name or ID screen using format. Okay. First, please adjust your name or ID screen using format name_campus. And then the second, during the lecture, please turn off your microphone and only turn on the microphone when the moderator gives the chance. And the third, please fill your attendance at bit.ly/attendance_GLS. Our committee also sent the attendance link in the Zoom chat room. And the fourth, participant who wish to ask question during Q&A session, please send your question at bit.ly/GLS/Q&A/1. The link for Q&A listed in the chat room as well. Or you can ask directly by using the raise hand feature later. Today, GLS on SDGs will present two topics. The first one is entitled Project Leads, Learners Empowerment Through Applied Digital Skills, that will be delivered by Mr. Marge Joseph Sardo, or Mr. MG from Philippines Normal University. And then the second topic entitled Violence Against Women and Children, Anathema to Peace and Justice, will be delivered by Prof. Victoria G Heler from West Visayas State University. We will have both lecture in 40 minutes and then continue with Q&A session in 30 minutes. Now, before we proceed to the next agenda, let me introduce our first speaker. Just a moment. Mr. Marge Joseph Sardo, he's ongoing to earn Master of Art in Education in Philippine Normal University. And in 2017, he earned bachelor degree in Cavite State University. And then now, he is an educational technology specialist in Department of Education in ICTS Educational Technology Unit in Central Office, and also International Moderator and Secretariat at International Alliance of English Language Teachers. And he also innovator and trainer in Google for Education Philippines. Okay, without further ado, let's invite Mr. MG. Hello, Mr. MG. Okay.
Hello again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
Okay, Mr. MG, I will give the virtual microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So let me share my screen. All right. So before I start, I would like to reintroduce myself. So thank you so much for that introduction again to the organizers. And before again I start, I would like to greet everyone. Very good afternoon or evening if you have a different time zone. So yeah, I'm again Marge Joseph Sardo, So you can call me Sir MJ or Teacher MJ, or um, I'm a project leader of the project leads, and I'm also a current Global Schools Program advocate of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and at the same time, a Global Schools Alliance of Liverpool, UK, as an ambassador, a Global Youth Advocates Network project officer. So these are all related SDG organizations that I'm currently engaged right now. So I'm also a Google for Education trainer and innovator, and the founder of Hiraya Philippines. So yeah. So I have here several actions. No, I call these actions, not projects, because these are really short, but and I'm still working on with project development since I'm new to the um, Global Youth Advocates Network as a project management and a project development officer. So I created, or I use the term actions instead of projects or programs. So just to share the things that we did, that we already um, implemented from the year 2020 to the present. So yeah, so the first action that I have is Action Talino, also known as Teaching and Learning Innovations and Opportunities, which are sessions that aim to empower educators, leaders, learners, and youth, and other interested individuals in facing the new normal challenges in the field of education. So I believe that every one of us, most especially my fellow Filipino people, experience the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, wherein we were forced to transition from um, a traditional face-to-face or on-site learning into an online or a hybrid learning. So what we did was to find out the different areas of improvement um, that we can improve. So like what I said, so we have 5 areas in this specific Talino action. We invited several speakers who are experts on the field. So one of which is the interaction or the creation of an interactive e-lesson using Nodma. So the speakers are from Singapore. So this is just an example. And the yellow part that you are seeing is the report or the summary of the impact, and of course, the session details. So we have there 308 trained participants, and so on and so forth. So that is part of Action Talino. If you wanted to know more about the previous program, you can visit Hiraya Philippines FB page. So we also have I hope that you can see this one, Action Data Analytics Training. So let me hide this one. Yeah. So we have there a data analytics training spearheaded by the ASEAN Data Science Explorers, wherein we are part of the trainers. And I trained 100 underserved students on the basic skills in data analytics. And the results are used, or the exercises and the outputs were used to create simple proposals in my subject, disaster readiness and risk reduction. So yeah, that's one of the actions. Aside from that, we have Action Marites. So if you're familiar with Marites, Marites is a term, a made-up term in the Philippines, which means, or which describes a person who is a gossiper. So who wants to gossip many things, issues, and others. So I use the term Marites because Marites stands for Merging Advocacies, Researches, Initiatives, and Training in Education for Sustainability. Wherein the main goal of this action is to collect, or to collate, or to bring together the different advocacies, researches, and initiatives for the youth and of the different organizations. So we have partner organizations such as the Department of Information and Communications Technology, the Ateneo de Manila University Senior High School Division, and Adhaya Philippines, which is a non-government institution. So, and yeah, so another action is the sharing of the education for sustainable development awareness and integration in an international sharing session. So wherein I shared my session entitled Integrating SDGs and EdTech Tools in Digital Education. So wherein I also integrated some sustainable development solutions in a lesson plan. So I taught in a lesson plan, which was also presented in the different teachers of the different field in the Philippines. Yeah, so because I'm also a current public school teacher who's serving for at least 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So aside from that, the last action that we did is the youth panel or the Sustainable Development Youth Goal panel, wherein we discussed and shared our projects and actions with the different youth around the world. So I was assigned to talk with Dr. Radhika and Youth Ambassador Alok in India for advocating Sustainable Development Goal number 4. So all of those experiences are related to my SDG advocacy journey, wherein I was able to access the different resources when it comes to teaching and, of course, learning about the SDGs. So, just a recall, we all know that sustainable development means that there is a balance between the present and our future. So, it's also um, it also means the maintenance or maintaining the balance of the current status that we have to the future statuses or the future conditions of our community. So that is sustainable development. And when we talk about the sustainable development goals, this is a universal call to action. And I believe that everyone, regardless of age, sex, gender, social status, have the right to respond to this call to action. So we have 17 SDGs, and I will not um, talk about this individually. So I'll be targeting SDG number 4, quality education. So with that, I have the access, or I have read the final report of the ASEAN UNICEF conference, wherein they uh, they presented a file which contains the situations, the issues, the proposed programs, the challenges that we had throughout our education systems in the ASEAN. So it was on October 15, 2020. And they mentioned many challenges that I think is possible for us to propose a solution. So I challenge, or I encourage everyone to read this report, because the ASEAN UNICEF partnership revealed several topics and challenges that is really potential to be a topic for our proposals, programs, and projects that we are planning to develop. So yeah, this is also the reason why I created project leads. Yeah. So moving on with the next part. So upon reading the report, I came up with a project which is known as Project Leads, or Learners Empowerment through Applied Digital Skills. So I entitled my session Supporting Schools in Shaping a Sustainable World through Project Leads. So Project Leads is a really simple and direct project that is really essential and I think necessary for all of the students, schools, and other educational institutions under this time of pandemic. So, before I proceed, I would like to discuss the project logo, which is a representation of the 4 21st century skills. So as you can see, the red one stands for or represents the communication skills. The yellow part is the collaboration skills, and the blue part is the critical thinking skills, and the green part is the creativity thinking skills. So all of this are um, included in the project leads. So aside from the digital skills or applied digital skills that we are going to talk about, it also tackles the different 21st century skills. So About the project, project leads or learners empowerment through applied digital skills or leads is anchored in the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education. So it is a response to the ASEAN UNICEF challenge, strengthen the ability of education systems to nurture and empower each and every child, adolescent, and young person, including the most disadvantaged, with digital literacy and transferable skills. So I hope that you are grasping with what Project Leads is all about. So it's a direct response to the ASEAN UNICEF challenge, which is available and which is mentioned in the final report of the ASEAN UNICEF conference in 2020. So it is a free online training series. This is facilitated online for now because we have a lot of pandemic restrictions when it comes to on-site training. But yeah, so that's the future plan of Project Leads if the pandemic restrictions have been lowered. So on-site training will be possible. So it's facilitated by, of course, certified Google for Education, innovators, trainers, and coaches. Why? Because the thing or the curriculum that I'm going to use is the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum. So as you can see, I discussed my journey as an SDG advocate. So I am a global youth advocate and at the same time a Google applied or a Google for Education certified trainer and innovator. And I utilize those positions and organizations to create one simple project wherein I have connection with. So yeah, so I have access with the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum, of course, to develop learners' digital literacy skills. So let me reiterate, let me clarify the word learner. It doesn't really mean, it doesn't literally mean students. So all of the students, or including youth, or those who are interested to learn, are considered learners. So this is not only limited to students who are in a formal school, but as of now, Project Leads is piloting its program under a high school ICT club members in the National Capital Region in the Philippines. So that's the first pilot school that we are coordinating with. So yeah, so for the SDG target indicator, we are targeting the SDG number 4, quality education 4.4, with the indicator 4.4.1 for the proportion of youth and adults with information and communications technology or ICT skills by the type of skills. So aside from that, the target is 4.6 with the indicator 4.6.1. So wherein we are going to find out the percentage of population in a given age group achieving at least fixed level of proficiency in a functional literacy, specifically digital literacy. So, all right. So moving on, this will become part of the evaluation of the project. So to be able to identify or to use the indicators and the targets and to see if the project is really working, we included it in the evaluation part of the project. Okay, so I know that you already have the idea that we need to utilize targets and indicators when it comes to creating projects and programs, so that we have the valid and the concrete proof that we targeted SDG number 4. Okay, so yeah, the project objectives is as simple as this 3. So we aim to train learners with GAD's curriculum or the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum to develop their applied digital skills and also deliver opportunities to collaborate with local and international youth networks. And lastly, provide certifications as proof of learners' mastery on applied digital skills. So I know that applied digital skills is really broad. So, and it has a lot of topics, but we are gonna focus on the definition of applied digital skills by the Google Applied Digital Skills Curriculum. So it's a project-based curriculum wherein the learners will have lessons that they will participate actively because it will help them solve real world problems. So students will watch videos that instruct them step by step on how to build digital projects from scratch. In my case, I just provided those videos for them to review because we are having synchronous sessions, and I believe synchronous sessions is really essential. And um, it's better to have asynchronous and asynchronous and an asynchronous combination of training. So yeah, and after they completed the lesson, they will demonstrate their academic learning or the digital literacy skills through infographics, interactive stories, career readiness, such as resume and etc. So I'll show you the sample of the digital skills curriculum that we are having. So this one is the example of the applied digital skills curriculum. So I have here the different, this is under Google for Education, and we have several lessons that we can discuss. So yeah, we have here the different digital tools such as Google Calendar, Google Docs, Drawings, Drive, Forms, Gmail, Google Earth, Jamboard. I know that many of you are familiar with the different Google applications. And we also have here several topics such as art, business, career, communication, computer science, and science, math, and others. So this is applied digital skills by the Google for education. So yeah, so if we're going to view a lesson, say for example, we are going to improve how students use Google Slides. So I'll click this filter and it will be revealed. So topics and lessons about Google Slides will be revealed. Okay. So yeah. So after clicking this one and clicking start, we will see several topics or video presentations about how the students will accomplish a specific task. So I use these videos as a supplementary material for review because we are having online simulations and online synchronous sessions so that the students will have the ability to feel more personal and human touch when it comes to the training. Okay. So yeah, this is just a supplementary, but this is how Project Leads works. We are just using the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum. So to make this more clear, this is the training guide that we are using for our students to learn or to help them learn more about digital skills. So as you can see, this is only focused on the different Google applications or Google for Education applications, since we are currently targeting learners in formal schools. So I'll show you the flow of the training guide. We have here the schedule, the session topic, the activities and challenges, and the required outputs. Okay. So yeah, uh, just like what I said, we are targeting students in formal schools. So this Project Leads training guide is dedicated for grade 7 to 10 students. So as you can see, we have here for the week 1, we will facilitate orientation and onboarding sessions, wherein the equivalent challenge or activity is the following. So we facilitated digital literacy skill self-assessment and the required outputs. Okay, so we also have here week number 2, wherein we distributed several topics and applications. So say for example, in the Google Docs, the students will have their applied digital skills enhanced through creating their resume. So the output is of course resume. So as you can see, if you're going to analyze this part, the activities are essential and will help them survive or will help them prepare for their future. Since these are all grade 7 to 10 students, as early as that grade level, they will have the idea on how to create their own resume. And at the same time, they can practice their digital skills through training on the Google Docs or training on how to use the Google Docs. So same thing with Google Drive. So they will have the ability to organize their school files, because I know that many of the students are using Google Drive and their Google Drives are not really organized. So yeah. And then Google Forms. So for creation of a simple survey or game, because I know that many of the students will undergo research activities wherein they are required to interview a person or to send survey forms. So Google Mail or Gmail for scheduling and tracking their tasks. And of course, Google Meet, Google Sheet for creating study schedule, Google Sites for designing a website or portfolio, slides for creating a presentation, and wrap up. So these are all the example activities, session topics, and required outputs that the students will undergo or will take if they are part of the Project Leads training activity. So we also have their graduation. So I have created another Project Leads training guide for pre-service teachers, because we are also having pre-service teachers training under Project Leads. So of course, the activities are focused on their future job. So say for example, in Google Docs, they will be trained on how to create lesson plans instead of resumes. So we can also add resumes here depending on the necessary activities and skill that they need to master. So these are all examples of the applied digital skills, the lessons and the topics, including the activities and the outputs that they need to submit. Okay. So aside from that, it's not really limited to learning the different Google application tools. We also are using different resources and curriculum available also in Google, of course, to master. Let me share my whole screen. Yeah. To master digital literacy, or to build up digital literacy. So since we're talking about digital literacy, this is a broader part of the digital community. So digital skills is under digital literacy. So that's why we added this one. So if you are familiar with Be Internet Awesome, it's a way on how students or kids will learn how to use the different tools and the different resources available online. So yeah, so it's a curriculum to help our students, to help our learners be more safe when it comes to dealing with online activities. So yeah, this is also integrated every time we are having sessions or topics. So we have here the curriculum itself. So the students will be taught on how to share with care, on how to avoid falling for fake. So it includes fake news, fake information, and etc. So as you can see, project leads is not really limited to digital skills, but it also have integrated programs and curriculums to as a springboard to build students' digital literacy. Okay. So here are some of the outputs or example outputs of the students or the trainees under project leads program. So we have here a mobile phone video. Before I proceed with this one, I would like to reveal first um, the SNP data of the digital skills report. So our pilot school is located at the National Capital Region. It's Lingunan National High School, the school's division's office of Valenzuela City in the Philippines. So according to them and according to the survey that we received, I selected the information that I presented today. So 85% of them or the schools or the rooms or the classrooms are using Google applications. So these are all implemented in the schools. But it doesn't really mean that all of them already know how to use Google applications. That's why it was revealed that 61% of the students have zero to basic knowledge on its use. So as you can see, and 86% of them are mobile phone users. So these are all the essential data that I gathered because it shows us that even though Google applications are being used every day by the students and the teachers, not all of them have the ability to understand how to use those kind of digital tools. And it's also a challenge for them because they are only mobile phone users. And we are all aware that it's really hard to transition from a mobile phone mode into a laptop or a bigger screen type of a gadget. Okay, so that's really hard. And not all Google applications have mobile friendly versions. Okay, so that's what I encountered. So you will see that one of the outputs of my students are taken from his mobile phone. So this is one of the example of the output of the students who is using a Google Meet for facilitating his online session. So as you can see, he's presenting using his mobile phone and his topic is all about dogs. So that is just an example. As you can see, the student was able to understand how to use or how to launch Google Meet, how to share his screen, and how to present while sharing the screen. So the topic is also not limited to the topics I gave. This is all about dogs and some of the dog care. So it also have we created this platform or the project leads for to develop values. So for this specific part, this is a value or the presentation shows the value to the lives of animals. Yeah, so if you're going to see the presentation, he presented the different dog cares, why dogs are important, and so on and so forth. So aside from that, we also have another output. So this one is a Google site output by Miss Patricia, a grade 8 student. So yeah, as you can see, she showed here her personal life, a diary or an essay of her sister or how she loved her sister and how her 2021 holiday went. So if you're going to read everything about this one, you will learn how she presented her love for her family. So project leads not only limited to learning about skills, but also learning values taken from the outputs of the students. Okay, so we also have another one, an output where the student used Google Slides and she presented all her favorite dishes. But these dishes are showcases or presents the different authentic Filipino dishes. So I'm not sure if all of these are authentic, but I believe adobo is from us. Or even though if it's not authentic, some of the countries taught us how to do this one, and it's been living in the Philippines for a lot of time. So we have here sinigang and so on and so forth. So this also showcase our cultural backgrounds, and of course some of the learnings that we had from other cultures. And lastly, another presentation is the creation of um, or an activity that I asked them is to, of course, create. It's not loading yet. Yeah. So I'll show you an activity that I got from there. So it's this one. It's the use of Google Slides to create a gamified platform. So as you can see, the activity is to sort or to identify whether the object is biodegradable or non-biodegradable. So the students can move the things around and select which one is biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So as you can see, this also taps or this also defines um, awareness on how we can contribute to our environment. So this can be also a topic of another SDG. So taking care of our environment. So yeah, as you can see, project leads houses a lot of topics, a lot of values, and of course, a potential source for us um, to spread awareness on the different sustainable development goals. So going back to my presentation, so we had our project leads visual orientation. Yeah, I already mentioned this one, program integrations. We also have fake news sessions or identifying bluff websites, something like that. So yeah, and lastly, I have here a practice for them. This one is a real event. So this one is an activity that I mentioned to my students or the trainees. So they will be participating to an activity which was implemented by the National Geographic Learning, the De La Salle University, Manila, and so on and so forth. So it's a home-based biology experiment wherein they applied what they learned from the training. So this one is an example. It's a short course in Google application or a Google Classroom wherein the students will have the ability to experience the project made by the National Geographic Learning and the De La Salle University, Manila. So students or the trainees were able to access the course smoothly because they already know how to navigate with Google Classroom, how to submit the works, or how to open and operate Google Docs, Google Forms, Google Slides, and so on and so forth. So that's how I was able to see the big help that the training we had, or the big help of the training that we had. So they easily access the course and they already finished the course. And they reported to me that it's really easy to identify or to navigate the different applications since we have the training. But those are just words, and we will see and we will find out if that is true after we have or after we occur with the last step, which is the digital skills, literacy, or self-assessment, and of course the post-test. So that's how we will measure the students' learning and of course the students' awareness on this project. So, right. So moving on, I also discussed to them the different training receivables, so training badges, certifications, networking opportunities. They already have connections with the National Geographic Learning through the De La Salle University, and of course access to traditional trainings. So yeah, and our desired outcomes. We plan to increase the digital skills literacy percentage through assessment and evaluation. So after after having the project and after piloting it to the schools, we will identify if the percentage I showed to you earlier will increase or decrease. We also plan to curate resources that houses SDG awareness and values, just like what I showed you before earlier. And of course, increase participation in global international activities with the use of digital skills. And of course, creation of a program flow of how the digital skills can be integrated into a lesson or curriculum. So as what SDG or ESD always tells us to remember, everything must be integrative, not additive. So I hope that we can use project leads to integrate it to the different learning areas that we are having right now. Even though it's not part of a formal school, I hope we have the ability to integrate it to the different areas. And of course, these are some of the points to remember. This was adopted from the Global Schools Advocate brochure. So let us all remember the 3 points: knowledge, action, mindset, and behavior. So when it comes to creating projects, let us give activities and resources that they can build their knowledge on SDGs, not only in the classroom, but also in different areas, just like I mentioned. And the action, let us empower young people globally to create sustainable solutions through education and innovation. And lastly, let us motivate students to become global citizens, ensure that they have the skills to become leaders, and guide the schools, which are somehow the direct influencers of the youth, and inspire them to play a critical role in addressing the challenges and achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030. So with that, I would like to close my session, and I would like to say thank you for listening. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. MG, for the very enlightening lecture regarding SDGs number 4, quality education. Now we are proceed to the next agenda, a lecture by Prof. Victoria G Heler from West Visayas State University, entitled Violence Against Women and Children, Anathema to Peace and Justice. Before we have to the lecture, let me introduce our second speaker. Prof. Victoria Heler got the Master in English in University of the Philippines in the Visayas and West Visayas State University, and she earned a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, West Negros College, and she also has several bachelor degree, not only in nursing science, but Bachelor of Law in Central Philippine University, Bachelor of Art major in English and Social Studies in West Visayas State University. And she's now work as a deputy city prosecutor in Iloilo City Prosecution Office. And then she get a membership from Prosecutors League of the Philippines of the Department of Justice and Women Lawyers Advocate of the Philippines. And without further ado, we invite Prof. Victoria G Heler to present their presentation. To Prof. Victoria G Heler, I give the virtual microphone to you.
Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Can I be heard? Cheers. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Heller.
My talk
Ms.
this
Heller,
afternoon,
yeah.
may I proceed? My talk somehow deals on the social aspect of our global citizenship. My main topic is about violence against women and children, an anathema against justice and peace. Anathema. It's a curse. It's a damnation. It is offensive to our struggle to obtain peace and justice as global citizens. I hope you can see my screen already.
Actually, Miss Helen, we didn't see your screen yet, and
I'm going to share my
see
screen
you.
now.
We cannot see you too. It seems the video is still closed.
But can you hear me? Were you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect, clearly.
That's good. So can you see my screen now?
Still processing. Yeah, we can see it now.
May I know if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it now, Pros Heller, but not in full slide actually.
But not in full?
Full slide.
Not in full slide.
Yeah,
But is it okay?
that's
Is it
okay.
very, it's okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's okay.
Before I talk about my main topic, please let me speak a little about the topic on shadow pandemic. What is this shadow pandemic? This is the term used to describe the growing rates of violence against women and girls amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This topic on shadow pandemic is closely related to my main topic, which is violence against women and children. With 90 countries in lockdown during the height of COVID-19, there are 4 billion people who were sheltering at home from the global contagion of the dreaded COVID-19. This sheltering at home is a protective measure, but it brings another deadly danger. This is what we see as shadow pandemic, the growing violence of women against children. Before we discuss this further, let us have a comparison. Before the pandemic, globally, women and girls experience unacceptably high levels of violence. Take note that 1 in 3 women have experienced physical and or sexual violence at some point in their lives. 6 out of 10 women were intentionally killed worldwide in 2017. They were murdered by an intimate partner or other family members. I just learned that in UK, every week there are 2 women being killed by their male partners. In the Philippines, in 2017, pre-COVID time, the Philippine National Demographic and Health Survey shows that 17% of women have experienced physical violence since age 15. 5% of women experienced physical violence in the past 12 months. Our basis will be the year 2017. Physical violence is higher among these groups of women. First, separated or widowed women, 33%. Married women, 19%. Never married women, 12%. And who is the most common perpetrator of this physical violence? It is the current husband or the partner. That's quite scary. Still pre-COVID time, 1 in 4 women aged 15 to 49 have experienced spousal violence, whether physical, sexual, or emotional, by a current or most recent husband or partner. And within the past year, still the basis is 2017, 15% of married women have experienced spousal violence. The most common form of spousal violence is emotional violence. But the most reported violence is physical violence. One third of women who have experienced physical or sexual violence sought help to stop the violence, while 41% of abused women never sought help nor told anyone. And who are the most common sources of help? Of course, the woman's own family, 65% of them, or a friend at 18%. This data from the Philippine National Police, these are the violence committed in the years 2016, 2017, up to 2019. And this violence committed where? Under RA 9262, there are thousands of them, thousands of cases. There are also thousands of rape cases under RA 8353. Thousands of cases under Article 336 of the Revised Penal Code of the Philippines, referring to acts of lasciviousness. We have hundreds of anti-sexual harassment. So this is the data given by the Philippine National Police of the Women and Children Protection. Moving on, the incidence of violence against women during the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic brought not only health and economic challenges, but also heightened tensions at home that have likely led to an increase in domestic violence. The Commission on Population and Development renewed its call for the protection of Filipino women after the result of the Social Weather Station survey, wherein it showed that 1 out of 4, or 25% of Filipino adults nationwide, cited violent acts against women as among the most pressing concerns of women during the pandemic. So simply put, the most pressing concern of women during this global pandemic here in the Philippines is violence committed against them. So this is the result of this survey. Of the 25% of Filipinos nationwide, 11% mentioned physical violence as a concern, 7% cited sexual violence, and 7% emotional violence. As you can see, in the capital city of Manila, the figure was higher, and the rest of Luzon as well, in Mindanao, and in Visayas. And the number one concern here is physical violence during the pandemic. Question now, what intensified this domestic violence during the pandemic? And I believe this is also true in other countries. So these are security and health and money worries. It's pretty obvious. Second factor, cramped living conditions, because everyone has been required to stay at home. And because of that, they will be isolated with abusers. It's not easy to go to the crisis centers because crisis centers may be closed, or the personnel were under quarantine because of the COVID virus. Another factor could be, of course, movement restrictions and deserted public spaces. So these are the factors which had intensified domestic violence during the pandemic. So this comes into mind the law which seeks to protect women during the pandemic. This is the Magna Carta for Women, or Magna Carta meaning the Great Charter. This is Republic Act 9710, which states that women have the right to protection and security in times of disasters, calamities, and other crisis situations, especially in all phases of relief, recovery, rehabilitation, and construction efforts. Therefore, the government shall address the particular needs of women from a gender-based perspective to ensure their full protection from sexual exploitation and other sexual and gender-based violence committed against them. And now, coming to the main topic of mine, this is a special law, which is entitled Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004. This was approved on March 8, 2004. And in this law, this is a special law which seeks to protect women and their children from various forms of violence, which we are going to discuss later on. It is a declaration of the state, of the government of the Philippines, that it values the dignity of women and children and guarantees full respect for human rights. We have to understand that protecting women, empowering women, is intertwined with respect for human rights. The state also recognizes in its state policy the need to protect the family and its members, particularly women and children, from violence and threats to their personal safety and security. Okay. So towards this end, in the state policy, the state shall exert efforts to address violence committed against women and children in keeping with the fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution and the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Convention on the Rights of the Child, and other international human rights instruments of which the Philippines is a party. We may be asked, what is the definition of violence against women and children? And we popularly call it VAUC. This refers to any act or a series of acts committed by any person, take note, committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, the former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child. So, who are protected here and who are the offenders? So, who are protected? Wife, the former wife, a woman with whom the offender has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, and protected as well are the children of the women. The offender here could be the stepfather. So, to emphasize who is the offender in VAUC. First, husband or the former husband, the lover, boyfriend or the former boyfriend, the live-in partner, the ex live-in partner, or one with whom the woman has a common child. The other offender would be one with whom the woman has a sexual or dating relationship. Another offender could be a conspirator. Who will be the conspirators here? It could be the in-laws. It could be the other woman. In short, the in-laws and or the other woman could be charged with violation of RA 9262 together with the main offender, the husband or the lover. You know, in the Philippines, men outnumbered women. The data shows that as of May 2022, there are over 112 million Filipinos. And there is 49.8% female, and the male consists of 50.2%. And there's an increase of the population in the Philippines by 1.5 million between the year 2021 and 2022. And children below 15 years old accounted for 30% of the total population in the Philippines. That's why there is a need to safeguard their rights, to protect the women and the children. So what are now the forms of violence punishable under the VAUC? So we have these four: physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, economic abuse. Physical violence, of course, it refers to acts that include bodily or physical harm. Sexual violence pertains to an act which is sexual in nature, committed against a woman or her child. Psychological violence pertains to acts or omissions causing or likely to cause mental or emotional suffering of the victim. Economic abuse, as the name suggests, refers to act that makes or attempts to make a woman financially dependent on the husband. So moving on now, these are acts which constitute, specific acts which constitute physical violence. First, causing physical harm to the woman or her child, threatening to cause the woman or her child physical harm, attempting to cause the woman or her child physical harm, placing the woman or her child in fear of imminent physical harm. That these are the acts which constitute physical violence. Moving on to another form of violence is sexual violence, such as rape, sexual harassment, acts of lasciviousness, treating a woman or her child as a sex object, making demeaning and sexually suggestive remarks, physically attacking the sexual parts of the victim's body. Further, forcing the woman or the child of the woman to watch obscene publications and indecent shows, or forcing the woman or her child to do indecent acts and or make films thereof. Also, forcing the wife and the mistress or the lover to live in the conjugal home or sleep together in the same room with the abuser. Another, acts causing or attempting to cause the victim to engage in what? In any sexual activity by force, threat of force, physical or other harm, or threat of physical or other harm or coercion. And another gross act would be prostituting the woman or her child. So those are the acts which constitute sexual violence. Moving on to the third form of violence is we have psychological violence. And these include intimidation, harassment, stalking, damage to property, damage of household properties, public ridicule or humiliation, repeated verbal abuse. We have marital infidelity. The Supreme Court recently pronounced that this marital infidelity, it confirmed that marital infidelity is a form of psychological violence. That in one case, even if the husband is abroad, the paramour is also abroad, the wife here is in the Philippines, residing in the Philippines together with the young children, and the wife in the Philippines filed a case for violation of RA 9262 or BAUC. The Supreme Court held that it is the marital infidelity committed abroad by the husband causes mental anxiety, psychological anxiety upon the woman, and therefore it is considered as a psychological violence. Thus, the husband was convicted for violation of RA 9262, although he committed the act of marital infidelity abroad. Another one in the list is causing or allowing the victim to witness the physical, sexual, or psychological abuse of a member of the family to which the victim belongs. It is also gross to witness pornography in any form by a woman or her child, to witness abusive injury to pets of the woman, to unlawful or unwanted deprivation of the right to custody and or visitation of common children. Now, what constitutes economic abuse? First, we have the withdrawal of financial support or preventing the victim from engaging in any legitimate profession. This is a control tactic so that the woman will be dependent financially on the husband. Occupation, from engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity. Except, of course, in cases wherein the other spouse partner objects on valid, serious, and moral grounds. Second form of economic abuse is deprivation or threat of deprivation of financial resources and the right to the use and enjoyment of the conjugal community or property owned in common. Economic abuse is destroying household property, controlling the victim's own money or properties, or solely controlling the conjugal money or properties. So, killing the pet of a woman is psychological abuse. Destroying household properties, for emphasis, is economic abuse. Moving on, okay, so the prescriptive period for this is you can file, the offended party can file within a period of 10 to 20 years, depends on what acts of violence were committed. Okay. May I ask now, what are the rights of the victim under VAUC? Okay. By the way, this can be filed in a family court in the Philippines. So we have this so-called family court wherein cases of violation against RA 9262 or violence against women and children will be heard in the family court. So moving on to the rights of the victim under VAUC, they should be treated with dignity and respect. Because as I said, that safeguarding the dignity of women is intertwined with the respect for human dignity, for human rights. Second right is confidentiality. That all the records to maintain the dignity of the offended parties, the victims who are the women and their children, all the proceedings, all the records should be kept confidential. Third right will be, they will be entitled to free public legal assistance. They will have paid leave of absence for 10 days, and those are paid leave of absence. So we say, we hope that the physical scars brought about by the physical violence committed against the woman will heal in 10 days. But it is not the same case with emotional scar. Nevertheless, the women victims will have paid leave of absence for 10 days. Moreover, the victims will be informed of their rights and the services they are entitled to, including protection orders. Okay? So these are barangay protection order, temporary protection order, and permanent protection order. Okay. So who may file for a protection order? So here's the list. First, rundown: offended party, parents or guardians of the offended party, ascendants, descendants, or collateral relatives within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity or affinity, the officers or social workers of the DSWD or social workers of local government units, police officers, preferably those in charge of women and children's desk, the punong barangay, the head of the barangays, or the barangay kagawad, a lawyer, of course, a counselor, a therapist, or a healthcare provider of the petitioner, or at least two concerned responsible citizens, neighbors, friends of the offended parties, the women and or the children. What are the mandatory services that the victims are entitled to? They're entitled for temporary shelter, obviously. They need to get out from the place of abuse. They need also psychosocial services as a mandatory service. They need recovery and rehabilitation programs. They need livelihood assistance, medical assistance, and counseling, of course. So, what are the reliefs given to a victim of a protection order? Prohibition of the respondent from threatening to commit or committing acts of violence. Prohibition of respondent from harassing, annoying, telephoning, contacting, or otherwise communicating with the petitioner. Removal and exclusion of the respondent from the residence of the petitioner, even if the offender is the owner of the house. He has to be moved out from the house. The offender, even if he owns the house, should be moved out from the house as part of the protection order by either by the barangay or by the court. Directing the respondent to stay away from the petitioner and designated family or household member. Directing lawful possession and use by petitioner of an automobile and other essential personal effects, regardless of ownership. So the car, even if it's owned by the offender, the offended party can still use it if it is required by the court. Granting a temporary or permanent custody of a child or children to the petitioner, the wife or the victim here. Prohibition of the respondent from any use or possession of any firearm or deadly weapon. It's pretty obvious to avoid further harm to be committed or may be committed to the victim. Restitution for actual damages caused by the violence inflicted. Directing the Department of Social Welfare and Development or any appropriate agency to provide what petitioner may need and the provision of such other forms or of relief as the court deems necessary. Now, we have this battered woman syndrome. What is this in relation to Bausi? This refers to a scientifically defined pattern of psychological and behavioral symptoms found in women living in battering relationships as a result of cumulative abuse. There was a woman who was being battered by her husband for many years, that one night while the husband was sleeping, the battered wife entered the room of that husband and killed the husband. That resulted to the filing of parricide case against the wife. But the Supreme Court in a lot of cases had exonerated the wife. And in that particular case, the wife was exonerated because the psychologist or the psychiatrist testified that the woman was suffering from a battered woman syndrome. So is that a defense? Of course. Victims, survivors who are found by the courts to be suffering from battered woman syndrome, take note, do not incur any criminal and civil liability. In the determination of the state of mind of the woman who was suffering from battered woman syndrome, the court shall be assisted, of course, by experts, and these are the psychiatrists and psychologists. Now, in taking into consideration this exonerating circumstance of the battered woman syndrome, it is a requirement that there should be at least 2 cycles of this abuse. So the cycle of abuse will be, the first phase is tension building. In this here, the tension between the spouses, for example, the tension increases. There's a breakdown of communication. The victim becomes fearful and feels the need to placate the abuser. Phase 2, there's an incident of either verbal, emotional, or physical abuse. There's anger, blaming, arguing, threats, intimidation. There could be a lot of actions here, beatings, verbal abuses, unmentionable expletives. The phase 3, will become the reconciliation. The abuser apologizes, gives excuses, blames the victim, denies the abuse occurred, or says it wasn't as bad as the victim claims. So there is a reconciliation. Phase 4, there's calm. There can be honeymoon phase. The incident is somewhat forgotten, that there's no abuse that took place. And it will go back again. That's the first cycle. Then it will go back again to the phase 1 where it's tension building. And then after that, after the tension, there will be a lot of beatings, mauling. Objects inside the house are flying. And third, reconciliation. And then there's calm and serenity. The Supreme Court said that there should be at least 2 cycles of this in order that the woman victim can be qualified as having this syndrome, the battered woman syndrome, at least 2 cycles. Now, what are the prohibited defenses in Vauci? That he is being under the influence of alcohol, any illicit drug, or any other mind-altering substance. It shall not be a defense. It shall not be a defense of the offender. May I emphasize? But for the woman who killed the husband, the defense could be a battered woman syndrome. Now, going to this custody of children, the woman victim shall be entitled to the custody and support of her children. So she's not disqualified from having custody of her children. In no case shall custody of minor children be given to the offender husband, the perpetrator. So you know that already, that the records and proceedings will be confidential. So we have to understand violence against women. And it is said that it is important to understand why women who become victims of abuse do not run away from the victim. And what can be more tragic is the fact that some women allow themselves to become a victim of abuse even when they have the capacity to get away from it. And for violation of psychological violence committed by the offended party should present psychiatrist or a psychologist to prove that indeed she suffered mental anxiety, anguish. There's a myth that domestic violence affects only a small percentage of the population and it is rare. Fact is, physical injuries or wife battering is the most reported case of violence across the 18-year period. This physical violence accounts for 75% of all gender-based violence cases. Another myth, that domestic violence occurs only in poor, uneducated, and minority families. It's a myth. The fact is, studies of domestic violence consistently have found that battering occurs among all types of families, regardless of income, profession, region, ethnicity, educational level, or race. So the elites do this, okay? They commit also violence. The middle class and the poorest of the poor. Another myth, alcohol abuse causes domestic violence. Although there is a high correlation between alcohol or other substance abuse and battering, it is not a causal relationship. Batterers use drinking as one of many excuses for their violence and as a way to place the responsibility for their violence elsewhere. We have another myth that domestic violence is usually a one-time, isolated occurrence. Battering is a pattern of coercion and control. Take note, a pattern of coercion and control that one person exerts over another. Battering is not just one physical attack. It includes the repeated use of a number of tactics, including intimidation, threats, economic deprivation, isolation, and psychological and sexual abuse. Another myth, men who batter are often good fathers. Children need father models. That is why women still try to keep the family intact. Fact, studies have found that men who batter their wives also abuse their children in 70% of cases. Even when children are not directly abused, they suffer as a result of witnessing one parent assault another. That is psychological violence. Battered women are masochistic and provoke the abuse. It's a myth. They must like it or they would leave. Masochistic meaning they like pain. They enjoy being inflicted with pain. Fact is, victim provocation is no more common in domestic violence than in any other crime. Battered women often make repeated attempts to leave violent relationships, but are prevented from doing so by increased violence and control tactics on the part of the abuser. Men have a right to discipline their partners for misbehaving. That battering is not a crime. It's a myth because battering or domestic violence is a crime under Philippine law. And you have just heard about RA 9262. Women should be empowered, you know that, because a woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, the power to nurture, and the power to transform. Just imagine if a woman is not protected, if a woman is not empowered, she could not function the way she should be. What are now the effects of this violence against women and children? Violence affects physical and mental health. That's a given. All forms of violence have damaging short and long effects on what? Mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And take note that children seem to be particularly susceptible to the negative effects of violence. We have to emphasize that those who experience or witness violence may develop a variety of problems, including what? There's a long list: anxiety, depression, insecurity, anger, poor anger management, poor social skills, pathological lying, which means habitual lying, manipulative behavior, impulsiveness, and lack of empathy. So those are the effects of violence against women and children. Now, along this line, what does our College of Law, the West Visayas State University, promote and give teeth to this law, RA 9262? The best practices of our College of Law of the West Visayas State University is, as part of the Clinical Legal Education Program, the CLEP, and to comply with the rule on 138A of the Revised Rules of Court for the Legal Clinic and Externships of the Law Student Practitioners, we intend to fill in the gaps in the implementation of laws that advocate the rights of women, children, and the marginalized sector. To be specific, this Republic Act 9262. West Visayas State University College of Law intend to have a community-based implementation of the project, starting in the local government units, the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays in our area, in partnership with the Gender and Development Office, the GOD Office of the University, and in collaboration with the Women and Children Protection Unit of the West Visayas Medical Center Hospital. West Visayas State University is the only state-funded university with WCPU in the region. Project E-Justicia of our college, of our university, will provide an accessible help desk to women, children, and marginalized sectors of the community in need of legal support and assistance. Those are our goals. What is this Project E-Justicia of the College of Law of the West Visayas State University? This is a student-led help desk and information drive which aims to provide legal assistance to vulnerable sectors, of course, the women, who are victims of abuse and gender-based violence and discrimination, abused children as well, and the marginalized sector of the community. So these are the goals of the College of Law. We have the chosen barangays, 2 of them, and the goal is to establish a link between the barangays and the legal clinic to establish awareness in the community about VAUSI, to establish easy access for the members of the community to a safe space for VAUSI victims, to provide proper training on VAUSI laws and their rights, to provide proper training on reproductive health, gender sensitivity, mental health, and the like. And importantly, to start the whole process, to financially assist victims of abuse, to file their cases in court through the allowance allocated in the amount of 1,500 pesos. A lot of cases, a lot of women were not able to file cases against their abusers who victimized them because they don't have even the fare to go to the police station, to go to the prosecutor's office, or to their lawyers. So our college had allocated the amount of 1,500 pesos for each victim. And in partnership with this West Visayas State University GOD and WPCU of the WVSU Medical Center. So we have this in partnership with the Gender and Development Office, in partnership with the WPCU of the WVSU Medical Center. So there's an established process flow of the two departments, which is incorporated into the Project eJusticia flow also, flow of functions. The legal clinic of the project is therefore inserted into the legal services process as part of its referral to the necessary departments. I already said that part. So in partnership further with the Asia Foundation, based on the signed memorandum of agreement with the Asia Foundation, the foundation has agreed and affirmed to invite and include West Visayas State University as one of its law school partners to the following activities, which will also benefit and translate to Project eJusticia. These are the orientation of the revised student practice rule, the training on the clinical management and operations, the training on clinical pedagogy for law professors of the WVSU's clinical legal education, the program to be clinicians, the mentorship sessions with directors and or lawyers from established legal aid clinics, the orientation and training on law school referral systems. Of course, our law students will be so busy. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are now the best practices of the College of Law of the West Visayas State University. Thank you, everyone, and good evening.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Victoria G Heler, for the very enlightening lecture regarding SDGs number 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institution. To the participant, let's give a very warm applause to Prof. Victoria G Heler with the click in the future button. Okay. It seems we have a question from the participants through the link. But before I read all the questions, allow me to offering to the participants who want to ask directly to our respected speakers for today. Since we have in the participant list, I saw a lot of students from West Visayas State University College of Law. Maybe Vanessa, can you hear me? Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vanessa. Okay. What do you think about the presentation from Prof. Victoria G Heler about the violence to the women and children? Can you give your opinion through Prof. Heler presentation?
Prosecutor Hiller's presentation was very eye-opening, and in fact, I am now currently working in public attorney's office, and I have seen firsthand the real life situations and the clients that I've talked to are really suffering, and these are the things that we should actively work towards on. And that violence against women and children are indeed happening, and there are a lot of abused women who are not really uh, catered on or served upon by the by lawyers.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa, for your talk. And maybe, Pros Heller, do you want give a comment from the panel's talk? Hello, Pros Heller, or can I invite another participant to ask or give your opinion about the SDGs number 4 and number 5? Sorry, number 16 that presented by Mr. MG and Miss Heller. Okay, before we invite the participant, let me continue to ask a question. Sorry, to read the question from ITS to Mr. MG. Hello, Mr. MG. Can you hear my voice?
Hello. Yes.
Mr. MG, there is a question from the student from ITS. Does the online learning will erase the role of the teacher, as the students could learn all the material by themselves?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay. Does the online learning will erase the role of a teacher, because the students could learn all the materials by themselves? What do you think about that?
Thank you so much for that question. We always need to remember that there is nothing that will replace a teacher when it comes to teaching with the students. Why? Because even though you can learn something from the material itself, the experiences or the life experiences and the personal experiences that the teacher or the one who will teach you will never be the same, or will not be will cannot be found, will never be found in the materials available online. At the same time, learning is must occur, or learning is more effective when it comes to lectures delivered by a person, a real person, and a person that you can ask question directly, or a person that you are learning with synchronously. As I learned from the previous workshops that I had, lessons are much more understood and much more, and will be learned when there is a personal touch or a human touch, and that will never be replaced by materials available online. So a material cannot talk, a material cannot mention its opinion, but a teacher can always deliver messages from the heart, from the mind. And that's what the learning is all about. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I enlightened about the collaboration between the teacher and the material using digital platform. One more question that I curious about your explanation. There is a great experience that you showed us about digital learning from young students. But in the other hand, there is a challenge in the pandemic era. Most of students get Zoom fatigue. More time spent in front of computer, and sometimes it can reduce their focus to engage with the course. So in your opinion, what should we do to face this situation?
Thank you so much. Like what you said, learners spend more time online. So that's why the strategy that we are using is chunking. So if you have a very broad and a very large number of topics or lessons, you need to create chunks so that the students will have the ability or the chance to take a rest whenever they have online engagement and so on and so forth. And at the same time, we need to inculcate values and of course reminders to lessons. Say for example, um, aside from the chunking part, you can also provide activities that will, say, for example, let them rest or will make them rest. Say, for example, mind teasers, brain teasers, mental health checkups, something like that, or health break sessions so that they can spend more time with their family and friends. So, learning is always possible anytime, anywhere. And even though you are not gonna invest your time full time in learning, you still have a chance to review or to grasp additional learnings through asynchronous mode of discussions. So that's why it's important for us to blend our instructions into synchronous and asynchronous ones, with, of course, the principles taught to us or the teaching principles that we have learned. So one of which is chunking, aside from that is mental health breaks, and of course, brain exercises.
Okay, thank you. So the physical and online could combine, so they can feel stress or burn out when they learn in pandemic era. Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ng, for the excellent answer. And then I will continue to. Okay, we have another question to Pros Heller. Mention about the myth and fact in abusive relationship. How if society and people believe the myth and blame the victim instead of the abuser? What do you think about this opinion or this thought, Pros Heller?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay. In your presentation, mention about the myth and fact in abusive relationship. So how if society and people believe to the myth and blame the victim instead of the abuser?
That is why there is a need to promote these laws about the protection of women and children against violence, because a lot of people do not know that even if in mere simple acts or gestures, they are already committing crimes. So there is a need to further promote this. We say that ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith, you know. Even if you don't know the law, if there's such a law, you will still be liable. So these myths could be from those people who are the grassroots, who are unschooled, uneducated. So they are not educated enough for them to know that disciplining a wife is a crime. Disciplining a child could be tantamount to child abuse. They thought all the while that it is okay. But we are protected now with a lot of laws. So these myths could be from people who do not know really the law. That is why there is a challenge for law students to further promote this law so that there will be less violators, less blaming for the victims. We need to educate our people. So there should be no sustainable development is promoted by the United Nations. If there is no peace in our homes, no peace in our community and in our country. So there's peace if we observe the law. They should know the law so that they will not violate the law. But even if they do not know the law, they will still be charged. They will still be held responsible. So those are the challenge for the educated ones, especially for law students, for lawyers, to promote the law, to educate people. That is our advocacy. That's why we are doing this right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Heller. Okay, I have another question from Daril Benlado from West Visayas State University. How can to Prosecutor Heller, how can we persuade women who suffer abuse to approach lawyer or seek help if they have a fear of being judged? Or fear of having found out of seeking help by the offender. It seems the question is same with the question from Salsabila that sometimes we still this issue sometimes like taboo to discuss. So is there any way to raise awareness to the community who still think that discussing issues like this is taboo? Thank
That's
you.
why the West, yes, thank you. That's why the West Visayas State University have this program, this project of going out to the barangays. We have adopted barangays so that the people to spread awareness for these victims. As you can hear from my talk, that there are a lot of victims who do not report the abuses committed against them because they fear of being ostracized. They fear of being mocked upon by the community. But if this, we have crisis centers here in the Philippines, they can run to these crisis centers. So we need to empower. When we say empower, to give support and to make them aware of what are their rights as human beings. So let us be, everyone should be vigilant, whether in whatever country you are, we should be vigilant of the rights, the human rights of each one. Because as I said earlier, that empowering women is intertwined with respect for human rights. So if they're afraid to come out in the open, we are there to support them. That is the challenge for those who know the law, for those who are educated, and every woman should stand for another woman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer, Pros Helen. Okay, one more thing I get curious, because social gap, economy, education, especially in this pandemic era, so it makes many people lose their job. So how about the government policy in the Philippines, especially to bring the security or to protect the women and children?
So this law will be given more teeth. And there are other laws. We have a number of laws protecting women and children, and this needs to be implemented. And we have, as I said earlier, we have crisis centers these are the safe places wherein the women victims can run into. But the challenge was crisis centers mostly were closed also during the height of the pandemic. So that is the challenge. still a challenge up to this time.
You are right. We still facing the challenge, but we never lose hope to bring the better future for everyone in the planet.
And one way of meeting the challenge is having this kind of platform, okay, of bringing more awareness about laws to how to protect them. Because if women are aware of their rights, they will rally for their rights and they will seek support as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pros Heller and Mr. MG. That's a great presentation, but unfortunately we have a limited time in here. So before I close the agenda, okay, I will offering the other participant who want to ask directly to Pros Heller and Mr. MG regarding their presentation about SDGs number 4 and number 16. Okay, I think that's pretty clear for them. Okay, and okay. Okay, once again, thank you so much, Mr. MG, Mr. Marge, Joseph Sardo, and Pros Victoria G Heler for the excellent lecture for today. Please give applause to our speakers by using the Zoom reaction feature. And furthermore, we would like to present a certificate awarding to Mr. MG. Okay, this is the certificate to Mr. Marge Joseph Sardo. Thank you so much. And we continue with certificate awarding to Pros Victoria G Heler. Okay, once again, thank you very much to both of our speakers for your valuable time and contribution on today's case lecture series. We believe that your lecture is beneficial for all participants in understanding sustainable development goals, especially quality education and peace, justice, and strong institutions. Now, before we end our lecture today, we invite all participants as well as the honorable speaker to take a group photo. Therefore, we would like to request all participants to turn on the camera. Okay, seems we have 4 pages. Allow me to count in 3 for first page. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then the next page, 1, 2, 3. The next page. And the last page, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much. Now we finish the group photo. And for participants who willing earning the credit transfer, you need to submit TWIL, or that's what I learned. Don't forget that the first assignment of TWIL should be submitted by May 20. And the last TWIL should be submitted by May 31. And the worksheet can be found through bit.ly/form.twil and submit your worksheet through bit.ly GLS_twil. And last but not least, please fill the feedback form through the link that you can also see on the chat room. And please be reminded, the participant who will get the stamp or the participant who come on time, join this event until the end and also fill the feedback form. For next week, we will have 6 interesting topics in 3 different streams. And for the Tuesday, we have SDGs on affordable and clean energy with Associate Professor Muhammad Muzaini bin Azizan from University Science Malaysia. And then we also have Miss Maria Lorena Castrillo and Mr. Gustavo Angel Beach from National University of Missions with the topic of native fungi for biocontrol missions Argentina. And in Wednesday, we have SDGs on clean water and sanitation that will be delivered by Professor Saifulin from National Chengkeng University, and SDGs on life below water with Associate Professor Veronica Grande from Mariano Marcos State University. And on Thursday, we have SDGs on affordable and clean energy that will be delivered by Dr. Yun Hao Ng from City University Hong Kong. And we also have SDGs on climate action with Dr. Janan Utomo from Heriot-Watt University. Okay, finally, we have reached the end of today's guest lecture series. Once again, thank you very much to our honorable speakers and all participants for the attention and cooperation. We hope to see you again in the next agenda. And don't forget to follow our social media on Instagram at ITS International Office and Facebook ITS International Office, and keep updated of our programs. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much, Mr. MG and Prof. Heler and all participants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. And allow me to end this meeting in 5,